Chris the king of nerds, pro wrestling he swerves, that's the moves he serves, living in the universe, ring the bell he's there, with that passionate flair, posters up every...
Hey, welcome back nerds. Welcome to another episode of What Am I Nerdy About? Usually I'm joined by Joe, Fonte Flame, but today I've got John. Joe got stuck at the dispensary a little late, so, you know, too much weed to sell, not enough people to sell it, I guess. So, I asked John if he'd pitch in, and did change my topic a little bit. So, sorry for those that don't like the wrestling talk, because I don't like to do back-to-back wrestling episodes. But we're going to talk some wrestling today. So, but it's WrestleMania season, and that's a good thing to talk wrestling at WrestleMania season, because we could use the hits. We could use the views. Hey, the likes and the subscriptions too. Give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe, and let's get to where we can monetize this thing a little bit. So it's not just John and I talking for fun, but you know, get us out there. And more than monetizing, because I think we'll get like pennies on each stream or whatever. We want people to know about the shop. And the shop's here in Colorado Springs. We are in the Citadel Mall. And malls are different than they used to be. There's a lot more mom and pop. Yeah, a lot of empty spaces in between. But some really cool, unique shops by coming out here. So come check us out. We carry whatever you're nerdy about. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things we carry related to what we're talking about tonight. But we carry physical media, music, movies, video games, comics, the toys and collectibles that go with them. And like I said, lots of wrestling. So a lot of wrestling merch. Largest wrestling selection you'll find in Colorado and in most states, really, unless you go to like Chicago or Vegas, New York, where they have like specific stores. So, John, welcome in, man. Appreciate you pitching in.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
All right. So, John's going to be the one that usually fills in Joe's role and interviews me about whatever's going on with me.
All right. Well, Griff.
Yeah.
What are you nerdy about, my friend?
Well, tonight we're talking wrestling again, and specifically ECW. So ECW Wrestling, Extreme Championship Wrestling, and started as Eastern Championship Wrestling. So as I've explained on here, there used to be the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, and they were the board of directors essentially that oversaw who was going to be the champion that represented the world of wrestling and would travel to different territories, being the champion that would be the champion in Georgia Championship Wrestling would be the NWA champion. Now, Georgia Championship Wrestling would have their Georgia Championship National Champion. And that person would get the shot at the World Champion when the World Champion would come in many times. Not every time, but they were kind of their top local drawing star. And then the World Champion would tour the States and even Japan, Europe, Mexico, were hotbeds for wrestling at different times too. So the NWA had very, very much changed. A lot of the old NWA footage was sold to Turner with the purchase of Jim Crockett and all the other companies to make it World Championship Wrestling, WCW. So WCW, WWF, by the late 80s and then 90s, those were the two companies. AWA had all but folded and then did fold. And there were two world champions recognized in the States, and the IWGP and All Japan champions were seen as legitimate world champions as well. So there were 4 legitimate world championships that were seen as you were a champion anywhere you went in the world. Okay? And then the NWA decided it was going to restart a third brand in the United States and have the NWA Championship back. So the NWA, they had a tournament and they brought this version of the championship back because WCW was using the last version of the Big Gold, and Big Gold was representing WCW at that point as the World Heavyweight Championship. So this title was coming back, and that was like the Dusty Rhodes. Ric Flair had that title before they gave him Big Gold. So that title's coming back. So gotta put that. So that title's coming back, and they had a tournament to crown the champion. And the NWA, after all their meetings, and somebody that was in those meetings was a young, brash Paul Heyman and Todd Gordon. And they pitched that their Eastern Championship Wrestling, so that was one of the territories, and it was based on the East Coast, Philadelphia, and would run New York and some in Boston, because all that's pretty close, but mostly Philadelphia.
At the 2300 Arena.
2300 Arena. That's where Eastern Championship Wrestling would have their shows. So they were changing, and they were no longer going to be Eastern Championship Wrestling, but they were really going to have an edge to this thing, and it was going to be Extreme Championship Wrestling. So the ECW champion, Shane Douglas, he was the one chosen to win the tournament. And in the final match, he already had, it didn't look like this, it was an older version of it, but he had this ECW championship. He was the territory champion coming in, saying that he represented their brand. And then he won the NWA championship. So he was going to be a double champion. And then the NWA did not know what was about to happen. They took the opportunity, Shane Douglas, Todd Gordon, and Paul Heyman, to say, thanks, but no thanks. Threw it to the ground. I'm not going to do that because I need somebody to buy that. I'm not going to throw it on the ground. We just recognize the ECW championship as a world's championship. Threw the NWA belt down, pissed off the NWA board. There was no longer an association with ECW and the NWA after that. Double crossed. For people in the know on indie wrestling scenes at the time, my God, that was massive news. Like, they double crossed the organization that used to be the main organization to say who the champion was. And they wanted to make a comeback, and they took advantage of the tournament and the coverage and said, hey, we're the champ. We don't need your title. Our title's the World Heavyweight Championship, and we're going to defend it around the world. They eventually got there. It took them a very long time to do shows outside of Philadelphia, let alone the United States. And yeah, it was a world championship. It got there, but it was off of that news that it made. So to call it Extreme Championship Wrestling, to call it an outlaw brand or a different type of brand of pro wrestling, boy, they sure made their statement at that time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at that point, it was even further than just being an outlaw promotion. They were off to the races, essentially telling everybody, F you, like,
Yeah.
This is us.
Yep. Yeah, after that, it was, let's put the pedal, to the floor and go full speed. They did not look back, and yeah, pissed a lot of people off in that. But with that, so I'm a guy who likes punk rock music, alternative music. I like stuff a little bit different than the mainstream.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it so pre-polished, perfect. I respect the hell out of Taylor Swift at this point of my life. But, especially as a teenager growing up, early 20s, I wasn't going to listen to the Taylor Swift at the time. I had no time for NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, or anything more than a muted video of Britney Spears. So, I mean, she was cute.
I mean, in that same breath, though, we take that Taylor Swift money in the store.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, look, I respect all of it now. I actually think a lot of Britney Spears and Taylor Swift as artists, I have a lot of respect for them. But as a punk rock teenager, you know, I wanted to be different, and I wanted that grittiness. I liked punk, I liked metal, I liked alt rock. I didn't like everything so clean cut. I liked the distortion. I liked things being a little bit aggressive and, to me, real. Where, you know, weird to use when we talk about wrestling, but, you know, it was a little bit more like there's depth to it.
Yeah.
So when Britney Spears is singing about my loneliness is killing me, and, you know, I just need you to reach out to me one more time. It's bubblegum. It is what it is. I'm not saying it's not art, but you've got on the alt rock station, you've got Tom York from Radiohead saying, I want to be everything. I adore you. I want to be everything that you would want in a man, but why would you even look at me? I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. Like, there was such depth. There was Weezer singing about, you know, Say It Ain't So. My father's an alcoholic, and now I'm turning out just like my dad. Oh my God, Say It Ain't So. Mm-hmm. Like, there's depth to that stuff that wasn't there in pop music all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So, when it came to ECW, they played inside baseball. One of Shane Douglas's biggest feuds was with Ric Flair, who never once stepped in an ECW ring.
Oh, absolutely.
And you didn't talk about the competition as a wrestling company. You never heard WWF call out a wrestler in WCW, and you didn't hear vice versa. In WCW, you didn't at that time. Bischoff brought it a little bit later. He called out Vince McMahon. But that was post-ECW that brought that.
I mean, ECW is where you've got pre-Stone Cold Steve Austin essentially saying every grievance that he had against WCW for letting them go.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite part is him shooting on an idea of them having a match, and he's like, I got it. For all the old people in WCW, a bottle of Geritol on a pole match.
Yes. They talked about the competition. Shane Douglas would call out who he called Dick Flair and was challenging him to matches, was pissing Rick off. There was some talk to bring Ric Flair in at one point. So it was supposed to lead somewhere, because what you don't want to do is promote the competition and become a commercial for the competition.
Of course.
You're there to promote your TV and get people to watch you. You don't want to talk about something that's not going to have a payoff. So, but they would talk about how much better their wrestlers were than the others. Joey Styles would call the moves, and he would say the name of the hold. And he goes, that's the name of the hold. It's not just what a maneuver. And he'd call out Vince McMahon by name as a bad play-by-play person. Mm-hmm. So they would say things about the competition. They would, talk about, you don't want to watch Monday Night NyQuil, as Steve Austin would call it. So, and their matches, they had no rules. You didn't have disqualifications in ECW. You involve weapons, you have run-ins. It was all about what served the story of the match and what served the character and what the audience was there for. Now, some of that leads to some of the bad things about ECW, because their audience would get bloodthirsty. And in those moments where you're there on a high of wanting to see a crazy stunt that you've never seen before, one that tops the last one that was done, that's where you have wrestlers that get hurt, wrestlers that permanently damage their body, ones that had to take painkillers that would eventually lead to deaths, surgeries that would be needed, just life that was harder on people because of the extremes they took with their body that really didn't need to be done.
Well, and you mentioning that, though, there's a difference out of that you have to look at as well, and that was, sadly, particular wrestlers that were out there hurting others on purpose.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about some key people here in a minute, and we'll talk about that asshole. But yeah, there's... What I loved about ECW was really it was the brainchild of Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman is the greatest wrestling mind that's ever lived.
Well, and you had mentioned earlier, like, how ECW was, like, your take also at the same time on the music that you were listening to at the time as well. Paul Heyman has went on record numerous times saying that he wanted ECW to be the grunge rock of professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, that even brings into the fact that people who have compared Paul Heyman to almost like being the Howard Stern of wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's more like a big name record producer, or a talent scout. I think that's probably the better fit for it. But yeah, Paul Heyman, like the brilliance of, he would see something in a wrestler, and he still does this today.
Yep.
There's a reason that Brock Lesnar got way up for Obafemi's finish.
Yep.
When he tossed him up and that power bomb that he does, kind of like a last ride into a Liger bomb. What's he call it? I don't remember the finish name, but God, Brock Lesnar did not have to get that high. He could have sandbagged.
Oh, 100%.
And to get that high, Obafemi's not strong. No man is strong enough to lift dead weight of a man 280 pounds of muscle that high in the air without Brock's cooperation. And the fact that Brock laid there and thought it would look good and actually said to Oba, "Put your foot on my chest."
Mm-hmm.
That's Brock giving back. It made me think more about Brock as a human. So,
by the way, those are some of my favorite moments in wrestling, is when you can clearly hear them and they're like, "Put your foot on my chest," or in like Jericho's case when he was going up against Bray Wyatt, yelling at Bray, "Don't look at me, don't look at me."
Yeah. Just those old guys teaching the young guys, "Let's get you over, kid."
I mean, and that's part of what
moments.
made ECW great, though, as well, is because you had Terry Funk in there that wasn't, like, we'll talk about this DVD here in a little bit, but in the rise and fall of ECW, you have Paul Heyman putting over Terry Funk, and he's just telling him,
ECW would have no credibility without Terry Funk.
But Terry Funk's just like, "Oh, let me do something with him. Oh, let me work with him. Oh, I can do something special with him."
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, Paul Heyman, he sees something in Obafemi. Mm-hmm. He saw something in Braun Breaker. He saw something in Brock Lesnar at one point. CM Punk at one point. Roman Reigns at one point. Man's got a bit of an eye for talent.
Oh, 100%.
And knows how to use them. If you realize Roman Reigns did not get over until he was with the Wise Man. CM Punk became a true main eventer with the Wise Man. It's helped just about everybody's career to be with Paul Heyman, especially when Paul Heyman wants to work with that person. So Paul knew how to see something that other people did not see in a character, or would see something, and despite all the flaws in a character, he saw this one attribute where he goes, we just focus on that. So I'm going to talk about this character, and then we'll get into the other characters that he discovered. But a great example of that was a wrestler called 911. 911 was this big guy who oversized just about everybody in their locker room, and he would finish people with a choke slam. And 911 came out when a match sucked.
Yep.
When a match was not going well and the crowd would start shitting on the match, they would start booing, they would start chanting, they would chant things that would not help us get monetized on YouTube. And when it was like, oh, this is not going well, Paul Heyman would send in 911, and he would just go in and he would choke slam everybody in the ring, and the match would be over and he'd walk out. But he was used, sometimes they would purposefully do bad things. So they were trying to do with the WWE ECW with the zombies. Sandman came out and canged the crap out of him. Too many people focus on the zombie. Like, oh, they're trying to shove zombie characters. He was used once, and he's beat up by the Sandman.
Yeah.
People didn't get it.
No, I've always looked at 911 because I'm a comedy fan. He's 911 in those matches was kind of like that guy from Showtime at the Apollo when you were stinking would come out there with the broom and sweep you off the stage.
But he was, he found that. 911, that guy did nothing with his career. He went to WCW. He was a jobber.
Yep.
He lost to the Big Show. He basically lost to the Big Show because of a PWI article where he said, I'd kill the Big Show if he came to ECW. And when he got up there, he lost immediately to Big Show by a choke slam. Funny.
Wait,
the Giant. But
I was about to say, who was the Big Show in WCW?
The Giant back then. But, people know him as the Big Show.
Yep.
So Paul saw so many different things. So some of my favorite characters. My favorite ECW character, maybe ever? It'd come down to him and Rob Van Dam, which we'll talk about later. But I'm going early ECW, peak years ECW. Raven.
Yeah.
What about Raven? You want to talk about the grunge version of wrestling. Like, this guy was grunge. He'd come out in tattered jeans, band shirt, flannel, long hair. This is a guy that had come from being Johnny Polo and Scotty the Body and Scotty Flamingo. He was like a beach character and then a preppy character. And then he tapped into Paul Heyman. Tapped into, who are you really, Raven?
Yeah, and that's the thing about Paul is that was...
Well, Scott. But at that time.
Yeah, and that was the thing about Paul Heyman is, he would develop characters around people, but his favorite work was finding the actual person.
Yeah.
And just amplifying
bringing that out. Yeah. So Raven was this character who was a loner character, but he wasn't a loner. He was a cult leader. He wanted to act like he was a loner, like nobody wanted around. But then he would always have followers. He didn't like to be in the mainstream. He liked things on his terms. When he went to WCW, because his matches were from an ECW style, his matches were Raven's rules. And Raven's rules were basically you could do what you wanted to do and have interference and have chairs and not have any countouts, because that was the Raven way of wrestling, because he was an outcast. He was different. He was the alternative. He was grunge. He was trashy, and he was going to use these things, and he was a cult leader, and he was going to use his Stevie Richards to interfere. And he would interfere. His biggest feud in ECW is with Tommy Dreamer, another guy that over succeeded in his career because of Paul Heyman. I never been a Tommy Dreamer guy. It's not that I disrespect Tommy Dreamer, but if I was going to put my dream roster together, I would not consider Tommy Dreamer being on my dream roster. Not a guy. He got himself over by being a guy who could take an ass kicking.
Yep.
And again, that was Paul Heyman saying, take this preppy look away, take this ugly ass suspenders that's like some type of like mid-90s Coco Beware, Owen Hart tag team get up. He wanted to be the third man in that team.
Yeah.
It was an ugly suit, and all right, let's put you out there, t-shirt, pants, just a hardcore guy who could kick ass and take an ass kicking. And that all came from a match with Sandman where Sandman caned the shit out of him, and he would take it, and he would even say, thank you, sir, may I have another, like he's on Animal House, taking more of them. The crowd's eating it up, and it gets him over with that audience.
I mean, in that moment there, it just also shows where Paul Heyman was, like, even just paying attention to what was going on in the news, because that whole segment came from...
Singapore Cane, yeah, that was a news thing. That was in the news at the time where a kid had gotten caned. So, yeah, definitely got some attention.
I mean, we're talking about characters and all that. Like, ECW, you were still seeing people holding to their character work and keeping kayfabe alive.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole thing of, I think it was Tommy Dreamer, like, blinded the Sandman. And the Sandman, instead of going around Philadelphia, like, yeah, they're running this thing where Sandman's blind. No, he stayed home. He didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Just all of his mail just got sent to the house.
Yep.
And if he happened to open the door, he actually had the patches on his eyes to make it look like he was actually blind.
Yeah, now he lived the gimmick. And Sandman, another good character. He'd come out to Enter Sandman. That was another thing. They would use all this, music that was completely unlicensed, and you could not get away with that.
Oh, that was something that made them awesome, though, is that they would do that. Meanwhile, you would flip over to, like, actually, WCW was super guilty of doing this, where it is that mainstream song and all that. They just changed the key changed the.
DDP's song was totally just
smells like Teen Spirit. Yeah.
So. Sandman was a great character, and again, overexcelled for his level of talent. Like, Raven was a talented motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
Shane Douglas, super talented, great wrestler. One of the best in-ring workers of his time period when he was on top. I don't think there was a better technician. Shawn Michaels wasn't there yet. Shawn Michaels was very good, but he wasn't there yet. Shane Douglas was really good in the ring. It was his mouth, unfortunately, that I think ended up costing him. And I understand that. It's not even that his mouth was bad. You can stand up for yourself against somebody else that has more power than you, and it can really hurt you.
Well, in Shane Douglas, it was also a lot of his stuff in WCW is or not WCW, ECW, you could definitely tell a lot of that came from him just getting a bad taste in his mouth when he actually wasn't as fed as Dean Douglas.
Yeah, he got, of course, the World Wrestling Federation, and everybody had a gimmick of occupational gimmick eras, and he was Dean Douglas. He was a teacher. And, he scratched fingers on the chalkboard. Yeah, go away Heat, just as a character. He and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat were a hell of a tag team back in WCW, man, when he was coming up as a rookie. So, I liked old Shane Douglas. Some of the tag teams that came out of ECW, I loved the Eliminators. Then Perry Saturn went on to have a great solo career in WCW. Public Enemy, I loved them, especially in ECW, because in ECW, it's kind of that Doink the Clown early on, where you could switch that gear. and they'd be party, ha ha ha, fun. We're fat guys who smoke weed and we like to party. Oh, you pissed us off, we're gonna kick your ass. Like, they knew how to switch that gear when they needed to.
Well, like, they want to talk about Dudleys or the table guys. Those are the guys that started introducing
Absolutely.
tables.
The first time I watched an ECW show, it was when Public Enemy was leaving to go to WCW, and it was a brawl between Public Enemy, and you just named them, the greatest tag team maybe ever. Definitely the greatest tag team of ECW.
Oh, yeah.
Devon and Bubba Ray, the Dudley Boys. The whole Dudley thing, man, that was just a fun gimmick, and then those two standouts made it work, and God, they took that gimmick places that Paul Heyman never even thought of it going.
I mean, I loved how it was like, for a while there, it felt like every week there was a new member of the Dudley family introduced. Like, Native American dances with Dudleys.
Daddy Dudley got around when he was
sure
working
did.
the territories, man.
Sign Guy Dudley, that was always my favorite.
Sign Guy Dudley
Because he
was
didn't
great.
talk, he just showed a sign.
Spike, who was on a permanent acid trip. You had Dudley. Dances with Dudley was the Native American one.
I mean, you just mentioned also, and not to get away from like the tag team thing, but you mentioned Spike. Probably one of the, like, if viral moments were a thing back then, probably one of the biggest viral moments they would have had would be Bam Bam Bigelow throwing Spike into the crowd from the ring.
There's another great character, Bam Bam Bigelow. He never got everything that I felt like he could have had in WWF, and part of that was, Vince loved a certain style at the top, and a certain style, a certain body type, and Bam Bam Bigelow didn't have that. But my God, Bam Bam was great in ECW. His feud with Taz had two feuds that really got him over, and that was one of them. The match where Taz has him in the Taz mission, he falls back and puts him through the ring. God, what a match. And
that happened in Bam Bam's hometown at Asbury Park.
Yeah, Bam Bam had a great run there. Steve Austin had a short but memorable run. Cactus Jack, pretty short but very memorable run. I love Cactus Jack showing, he always wrestled the hardcore style. And when everybody wrestled the hardcore style, how do you stand out? You mat wrestle.
Yeah.
And my God, he turned heel by not being as aggressive. It was genius on Mick's part.
You watch a 15-minute match and 13 minutes of him is just in a headlock takedown.
God, and that's how you become a heel in ECW. So many. I'm trying to save a couple of my favorites towards the end, but so Taz was one of my favorites. I love Taz's short delivery. He had one of my favorite catchphrases in "Beat me if you can, survive if I let you." That's a great line from an ass kicker. I'm gonna lose a match. You might catch me in a choke. You might catch me in an arm bar. I'm gonna tap. You're not gonna break my arm. You might get my shoulders to the mat. It's gonna be tough. Beat me if you can. Survive if I let you.
Well,
You're in there for a fight.
I was about to say, that was essentially him telling them, look, you might kick my ass. You're going to tote one on your way down.
You might beat me, but you are going to feel it.
Yep.
You're going to have to work for it. And, yeah, he was very good. I think he could have gone further had WCW survived.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd gone to WCW over WWF. He was just too short for Vince, which is unfortunate. But he was fantastic. And his feud
with another one of my favorites was the other feud that got him over, and that was Sabu.
Yeah.
Sabu was truly an innovator. Like, to use the tables, the triple jump moonsault, the way he would use the chair in the match, not just by hitting people with a chair, by leaping off the chair, using it as a prop, maybe doing a face drop into it, using it. He would jump off the top rope with the, do a leg drop and throw a chair underneath and drop the leg with the chair between his leg and the opponent. He was always thinking of new moves that truly demand such a Hall of Famer just because of how many people stole from Sabu's innovations. Even though Sabu never made it to a top level, he did get his WWE run with the WWE ECW there for a little while. He had an opportunity in WCW. He had opportunities for WWF. He listened too much to his uncle and got bad advice. And he could have been... His name could have been out there more. The first, it was so memorable when he was on the second or third episode of Nitro. Like, he was somebody that Bischoff was excited about building it around, or I think more Kevin Sullivan was excited about it.
Yeah,
because Kevin Sullivan was the booker, and Kevin Sullivan really pulled from ECW because, I mean, Ty Gordon ended up being outed as a mole, but also a woman, his wife, Nancy Sullivan, was working in ECW before they brought her to WCW, and he was booking WCW with his wife working in ECW, so he's always keeping an eye on talent out there. Half of the ECW roster got some type of run in WCW.
Well, and then like Paul Heyman, that's where he learned some of his booking style from as well, because he had worked in Florida with Kevin Sullivan as well.
Oh yeah, man, that's a whole other Booker thing that is important. I wrote a Torch article a while back about sitting under learning trees.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Heyman did. He sat under WCW and a little bit of Bill Watts, even though they butted a lot of heads. He still learned from him. He still learned from Vern. He learned from Eddie Graham. He learned from so many different bookers in his past. So, but it's one of the criticisms I have of Tony Khan. He never sat under a booker. Triple H sat under Vince McMahon.
Yep.
Vince McMahon sat under his dad.
Yep.
Paul Heyman sat under so many bookers, including
Dusty
Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty Rhodes sat under good bookers. Like, so many every good booker sat under other bookers, where Tony Khan's just like, I know how I do this.
And some of that could also be said though about Eric Bischoff, because he didn't necessarily set up.
Eric Bischoff was never a booker.
Oh, okay.
He was the president.
I understood.
Yep. He didn't get involved in creative until NWO. And that was that was just key things. But Kevin was still the booker, and Bischoff, one of the things he says WCW's failure was they didn't have a good finish guy.
Yeah.
That's why Johnny Ace was hired. He goes, we needed a Pat Patterson. We needed a finish guy. He said, of all the people, he goes, people ask me, what's one person from WWF that if you could have hired? He goes, I hired a bunch of them that I wanted. He goes, if I could have hired one person from WWF, it would have been Pat Patterson.
Yep.
He's like, I needed a finish guy. Somebody to be able to think of a unique way to finish every match. So that's, yeah.
Now, you had mentioned earlier how ECW would essentially call out the competition and all of that. I mean, we can't talk about something like that though without mentioning how WCW essentially stole the cruiserweights from ECW.
Yes and no. I mean, there's a bigger budget at WCW. You see something, you're gonna sign them. And before they ever went to ECW, Eric Bischoff had Worlds Collide with AAA.
That is
so. True. I mean, Eric Bischoff already saw the Rey Mysterios and the Eddie Guerreros and the Psychoses and those. So. Okay, dog. So yes, brief runs on their way to WCW for your Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit, no matter how his life ended, my God, he was my favorite wrestler. At the time he died, I was in tears that I lost my favorite wrestler, and then I could not believe the way it happened, what happened. That was wild. But yeah, all came through WCW. Malenko and Benoit were an incredible tag team. Guerrero and Malenko had tremendous matches. They had a match together where the whole crowd was chanting, "Please don't go, please don't go."
That's probably my
when they
favorite
were leaving
ECW match.
to go to WCW. Let's see, I'm making sure I run down all my favorite characters before I get to the very end. We were talking about Sabu. Sabu, one of my favorite ECW matches, is so from FMW, Frontier Martial Art Wrestling out of Japan.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Hayabusa was one of my favorites. And he had a cool mask, he had incredible moves, and who was it? Was it Onita he tagged with?
Yes.
Against Sabu and the whole fucking show. Rob Van Dam. God, I love RVD. Man was a human highlight reel. Yeah, he did. He had to get all his shit in every match, as they say. He had to do his moveset. He had to do his Rolling Thunder. He had to do his twisting leg drop. He had to do his moonsaults from the to the floor. 5-star frog splash, split leg moonsault. He had like all these spots that he had to do every match. So as I learned more and more about how wrestling matches work and the emotion and what it makes to be a top star and bring the audience on a roller coaster ride, improv being the moment. Look, Rob Van Dam is no Ric Flair.
No.
He's no Hulk Hogan when it comes to that. I understand why Hulk's a top guy, but do I want to watch a best of Hulk Hogan DVD to rewatch matches? Or do I want to watch a best of RVD? I will take RVD 11 times out of 10 because Hogan's matches were also always the same, and only when you're like in the moment, which is what it should be, when you're in the moment and you're drawing on the audience and the wrestler are feeding off of each other. That's what Hogan was the best at.
Yes.
And that's why Hogan is the GOAT. Hogan, you know, I'm not a Hogan guy, but there's a reason Hogan was the guy. And he bonded with the audience. Like Dusty Rhodes says, nobody has ever captured the imagination of the wrestling world than that man, Hulk Hogan. And Dusty knew. So Dusty had a great run there. Him versus Steve Corino was a lot of fun towards the dying days. Tajiri versus Super Crazy. My God, track a match down between those two guys. Well, and who was the third guy that they'd throw in that triple threat? They would do a lot of triple threats with Tajiri, Super Crazy. I don't remember who it was, but
I know that they a couple of times they did it with Mikey Whipwreck.
Whipwreck was coming to my mind, but I didn't want to say. I don't think Whipwreck was the guy that.
And I know it wasn't the one that they were doing it for the ECW One Night Stand, because they did Lil Guido.
Guido was the one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Guido. Yeah, dude. During the TNN days, those three would have banger matches. It's kind of like when I was telling you, Velocity had this run where it was Paul London versus
Jimmy Wang
Yang.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the hell? Why are people not like just, these matches should be like what everybody's talking about. But yeah, those were really, really good matches, those three-way dances. Little Guido is a great base for those two wild guys.
Well, and like you mentioned it, like the three-way dance. Something else innovative about ECW is that it was, if they call, first off, there was no such thing as a triple threat match. It was a three-way dance, and every three-way dance was elimination.
Yes, and there weren't triple threat matches in WWE or WCW before they were popularized in ECW. And yeah, they were always elimination. I loved how, like, when Mike Awesome had the title and they're like, you know, he went to WCW, he was the first one pinned. You're seeing a new champion tonight.
Well, that happened with Taz, too.
Yeah.
When he went to WWE.
Yes. And less as punishment, more as, hey, I'm going to let these guys shine. I'm on my way out. He did things right versus taking the title to WCW.
Well, and that was the thing with Taz, too, is that he got eliminated. Like, yeah, there's always going to be a second where, like, the match kind of stops and like, that person leaves the ring and all of that. No, that match came to a complete and total halt. The locker room cleared out, and everybody in that locker room was just giving Taz his flowers, essentially, at that moment.
Speaking of Mike Awesome, there's another one. I loved Mike Awesome. That dude was like 6'4", springboarded like a cruiserweight, but had this power to like do like a razor's edge, throw you across the ring, and they used that 18-foot ring instead of the 20-foot, so it looked like he just launched him all the way across corner to corner.
Well, and you talk about rivalries too. I feel you can't talk about Mike Awesome without mentioning Masato Tanaka.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I was going to say, that those two came from Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, from FMW, Mike the Gladiator. Wow, those matches were so good. That was my favorite match on the ECW One Night Stand.
I think that's pretty much everybody's favorite match
and
on that show.
If you get the DVD for One Night Stand, you can turn the alternate commentary on. Is just JBL shitting on the match the whole time.
Yep.
Oh my God! He kicked out of another shot from a chair. Oh my God! It did kind of kill the business. I understand what JBL was saying, but doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the hell out of watching them. Man, am I leaving anybody out from ECW that I? Well, let's talk about some other characters that were notable characters that. Fuck New Jack.
Yeah.
New Jack took a 17-year-old kid in the ring and took advantage of him. This 17-year-old kid should not have been in the ring. He called himself Mass Transit. He didn't know how to cut himself, blade himself, get color. So asked New Jack to do it. New Jack, frustrated that this kid didn't know what he was doing, cut the shit out of him. Sent the kid to the hospital.
Made the kid's forehead look like he would just take it in kitty scissors gloves.
Yeah. Eventually the kid ended his own life over the depression from the incident. And New Jack felt no remorse. New Jack tried to kill
Vic Grimes.
Vic Grimes.
Vic Grimes.
He threw him off the scaffold. He was hoping he'd miss the tables that would break the fall. He wanted to break his neck or kill him.
And the way that he justified it is he said that Vic Grimes attempted to hurt him in another scaffolding match that they had.
Then don't take another match.
Yeah.
Tell Paul I won't work with him. Like, settle it in the locker room, settle it outside. Do not do it and New Jack has a history of this. He did it in another indie promotion later. The fact that they have honored him in the WWE, put him in the games, licensed his likeness, trying to make a legend out of this piece of shit pisses me off. You were in a match in front of a crowd, often with kids, and you were violently attacking somebody. You should be in jail for that type of an attack. Mm-hmm. It is a coward, pussy way to try to prove your manhood, to try to take advantage of somebody who gives you their body and then take it up too far to the next level. If you got a problem with somebody, deal with it like a man in a different type of environment. throw, there's locker rooms backstage. There's before and after the show. Put it in the ring if you want, and put an official out there to call it and say, we're not going to let you kill each other, but we're going to let you settle it. That's how you do that kind of stuff. You don't go out there when somebody's going to give you their body and take advantage of it and hurt them.
There's very much a professional way of handling certain things like that. Like if you have an issue with somebody and it boils over to the ring, that's when y'all work out your issues and you turn y'all's negative towards each other into a positive and make it a story.
Booker T and Batista had an incident at a photo shoot one time, and it turned into fists, and then it turned into a match and a program. And those guys have utmost respect for each other. They said something, fist happened, they turned it into an angle. They won't talk bad about each other.
Well, if you want to talk about that, then you put it at Edge and Matt Hardy.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes there's receipts. Braun Strowman hit Brock Lesnar a little too hard in the Rumble, and Brock Lesnar said, "Don't do that." And the way he said, "Don't do that," was by punching him in the jaw with his fist that's the size of a lunchbox that won him the UFC World's Heavyweight Championship.
And held it for a long time.
So, yeah. There's receipts in the moment, and there's premeditated, I'm going to attack you when your guards are down.
There's a difference in you trying to get you feeling that you need to give somebody a receipt and essentially committing conspiracy to murder.
Yeah. So screw New Jack. And screw Stevie Richards while I'm at it. That guy barely had a career.
Yep.
He got over because he was Raven's lackey in 2 different companies. He tried his WWE run, and his most memorable thing was getting a lot of heat on Right to Censor. And now he does a good job of shitting on the business and telling everybody how wrong they are in the way they do it. So fuck Stevie Richards too.
We're going to talk that way. I want to say screw Justin Credible, not as his character in ECW, but just how he has decided to act now.
Yeah. I'll have to trust you on that. I don't know what he's going. Back then, I know he wasn't just the best. He wasn't just he wasn't just the coolest. He wasn't just the best. He was just incredible.
Yep. No,
I dug it.
It's just now because he posts online and all that, trying to gain sympathy from people, or trying to say that he's currently in the hospital, but you can clearly tell that he's in a hotel room, and his little heart leads and all of that he's got on are just little stickers.
Yeah.
It's nothing, and it's essentially him trying to get people to give him money because he is at a point in his life where, and I feel for him in this one. He's given his life to this business, and it's left him in a state where he can't necessarily do anything else to make money, but I still think he's choosing the wrong way of going about that.
I can understand that. I am glad you talked about Justin Credible, though, because, dude, I almost didn't talk about Lance Storm. The Impact players.
How do we do this without talking about Lance Storm?
The Impact players, great tag team. Lance Storm, if we can be serious for
I
a
was
moment.
about to say, you got it before I could.
Oh, my God. You want to talk about, you get yourself over. Jake the Snake was always good about it. If everybody's going to yell doing their promos, I'm going to talk real soft. And I'm going to make you listen to every word that I'm going to say, because I say it differently than everyone else.
I mean, and that's what him and Lance Storm both hit.
Lance Storm.
Never once raised
He
their
would
voice.
go out, if I could be serious for a minute. And he was always serious. He never was goofy. So for him to go out, if I could be serious for a minute, it's such a great meta, sarcastic line. If you know kind of thing. You want to talk about precision in the ring and being the best technical wrestler? In the dying days of WCW, he was the best. when he had like 3 titles at once, and one of them was the hardcore title, and he didn't like the hardcore title, so he renamed it. Well, he'd already renamed the U.S. title the Canadian title.
The cruiserweight was now the under 200 kilogram title.
Yes. But the hardcore title was the Saskatchewan Hardcore International title.
Yep.
Great abbreviation. But yeah,
I loved how also in that he got tired of holding 3 belts, so he just gave the cruiserweight title or the under 200 kilogram title to Elix Skipper.
Oh, Elix Skipper. We're talking about ECW, not
Yep.
WCW and TNA. Lance Storm, I loved his finish. It was so simple. It was a half crab. It was a half Boston Crab, a half of a sharpshooter. But the way he would roll into it, he'd shoot you off the ropes and roll with a backward somersault and have you locked in the middle of the ring and you couldn't go anywhere. And he worked up towards that. Man, Lance Storm, he was not built for WWE. And I wish he'd never gone to WWE other than the paycheck that he got and the royalties that he'll get for the rest of his life. But my God, that guy was so underrated. And when he was at the best, when he would have been like ready for a world title in his career, there just wasn't a company for him.
Yeah. And if you want to see an example of the half crab, come to the store. We've got CM Punk doing it to Roman Reigns up front.
I've got CM Punk. I've had him putting Roman Reigns in the Anaconda Vice. My son Tyler was at the store the other day, and he had him up on the shoulders like in a GTS. And yeah, every day I'll have him in a different move. Where one day I just had him, with his foot up on his chest and his arms up. Yeah, it's my wishful thinking for WrestleMania, even though my heart says CM Punk, and my head says Roman Reigns. So
my heart says none of the fans wanted this. It's happening anyway.
None of the fans wanted what? CM Punk versus Roman?
Not yet.
Oh man,
I wanted another year build up.
Oh no! This is brilliant. I'm so looking forward to this. I remember the night that first promo they cut, man. The crowd was ready, man, because I was on there with Keller. That's all we talked about that night. And that's been my favorite segments of Raw every week.
Other than
so I disagree,
Brock
man.
Getting put down by Obafemi.
True. That
Which
was,
we were talking about that earlier. At some point, Brock's gonna have to F5 Oba just to get this thing over.
It'll happen.
Fully over.
Oh, it'll definitely
It's
happen.
already heading towards over, but at that moment, it's just going to push it over the top and get it.
Yeah, honestly, that might be the match I'm looking forward to the most at WrestleMania, and I've never said that about a Brock Lesnar match, with the exception of when he wrestled Kurt Angle.
Well, you were saying that also earlier about Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu.
I am looking forward to that.
They
I think
need
I'm looking forward to the Oba Brock more so.
Yeah.
Punk and Roman too. I think that's gonna be really good. Those two know how to tell stories in the ring. They know what they're doing. So ECW though.
I was going to bring it back to Paul Heyman, just the way, especially over the last few years in WWE, his character work, like just the way that he will legitimately make himself look like he ain't slept in 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's always been good. But I mean, when I first started watching wrestling, he was Rick Rude's manager, and Rick Rude was my favorite. So, yeah. So probably as good a time as any to talk about the things that we have at Nerdstalgia. Since you mentioned Paul Heyman, yeah, we carry Funko Pops. We carry action figures, loose and boxed, Funko Pops, title belts, all the things. But we're going to show a few things that we have here. The ECW Rise and Fall DVD that WWE produced. Their best-selling DVD ever at the point this came out, and for years after. So many copies of this were sold, they even did a reunion of ECW. Now they have NXT. Their first attempt at having a third show that was more developmental was they relaunched ECW. They did a one-night stand pay-per-view. That show went so well, they did a One Night Stand 2, which I don't think is any longer a one night stand when you've done it twice. But the second one, they had a TV show that came off of that. And I knew it wouldn't happen, but I was a little disappointed. It was almost like history repeating itself. Rob Van Dam was the ECW champion.
Yep.
And then he won the World's Heavyweight Championship. Or no, he had the World's Heavyweight Championship.
WWE title.
WWE Championship. And they want, fans wanted him to throw that one down. But he said, no, he's going to keep it because it spins.
Yep.
In a very sarcastic Rob Van Dam tone. This has a great documentary about ECW. If you don't really know, you didn't live through the ECW years, this is a really good introduction to them. Not everything is there. WWE Productions does not always tell the truth on things. They tell their version of history that makes WWE look best. To the victory go the spoils. You went through American history class. Yeah, and all that's, we tell our version of it. There's also incredible matches, double disc. So, Pitbull versus Raven and Stevie Richards, Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis, fantastic. Mikey Ripwreck versus Sandman, excellent story where a jobber wins a world championship, incredible. Too Cold Scorpio versus Sabu, Scorpio is also amazing. Tommy Dreamer versus Raven, Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow, that match we mentioned earlier, and Rob Van Dam versus another guy we didn't talk about, Jerry Lynn.
Freaking Lynn.
Yeah. So, a few years after when they did the ECW reunion shows, got the show back and running, and ECW was in the news, they did this unauthorized history of Extreme Championship Wrestling called Barbed Wire City. You ever watch this?
I have not.
You're going to borrow it from the store. When John's done with it, we'll have it back at the store. You need to watch that. It's a really good history of ECW that's not produced by the WWE. So it doesn't have footage because they don't own it, but they have all the people that they talk to, and they're able to show photos and stills. A lot of like old observers and torch stills get used, and then just different photos. Also, they tried to do many different reunion shows. The WWE ECW One Night Stand. They also did a Hardcore Homecoming. This was further from the Hardcore Homecoming crew. The group that did that. So you got like the BWO, the Blue World Order. There's a time I like Stevie Richards. Used as he should be. Comedy role. Him with the Nova and the Blue Meanie. That was great. The Blue Guy, as he was known at that time. But, if you want to see some of these guys later, we didn't talk about Al Snow, but that's where Al Snow got himself over. Yeah. He wrestled C.W. Anderson. C.W. Anderson, man, underrated guy. Balls Mahoney versus Axel Rotten. Ugh. Gangsta's New Jack and Mustafa versus Angel of the Baldies and some mystery guy. Jerry Lynn versus Dangerous Devin Storm. Devin Storm was a hell of a worker. Shane Douglas versus Too Cold Scorpio with Bill Alfonso. There's another. Let's talk about some Bill Alfonso heat. When everybody cheers for Rob Van Dam, but you want him to be a heel, you give him the most annoying manager in the history of managers. Like I said, we carry title belts. We showed off that NWA one earlier, but the ECW title, if you didn't watch our top 5 titles, that's on there. One of my all-time favorite belts. God, it's gorgeous. Yeah, that's the one that, that J-Mar design. Beautiful stuff. So that's some of the stuff you can find at Nerdstalgia. Check us out. We are closed on Wednesdays, so don't come in on a Wednesday. This summer we might be open on Wednesdays, but we got a few weeks to figure that out. So, and this man,
it depends on
him.
Somebody's availability.
So, yeah, that's some of the stuff that you can find at Nerdstalgia.
You mentioned that Hardcore Homecoming and then also ECW One Night Stand. Some that you also can't forget to mention, TNA Hardcore Justice.
Yeah.
The first one of those that they did.
Yeah.
Which was essentially just a huge ECW reunion.
Yeah, and I thought that was TNA trying a little too hard with history that wasn't part of their history.
Agreed.
So, I'm like, that's the wrong way to call out the competition. Be like, remember when the other guys were great? Like, people have issues with us as TNA, but remember when ECW was great? We can bring some of those old guys back.
Yeah, they failed in the same instance that WWE had failed as well, because they wanted to get RVD versus Jerry Lynn at the first One Night Stand. Well, RVD was injured, so
Yeah.
ECW or TNA tried the same thing. Guess what? RVD was injured again.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, make sure you do come check us out at Nerdstalgia and let us know what you're nerdy about.
Nerdstalgia, Colorado Springs' hidden gem in the Citadel Mall. We carry whatever you're nerdy about, whether you're a music nerd, comic nerd, movie, or video games, and with the largest selection of pro wrestling merchandise in Colorado, we have the physical media, toys, and collectibles that will take you back to your past. We are open 6 days a week, closed on Wednesdays. We love seeing what you're looking to get rid of and offer cash or store credit. Stop by to let us know, what are you nerdy about?
And thank you so much. While you're checking us out, if you can't check out the store, you want to support us, you've already liked, you've already subscribed, you can also check out Dubby. Dubby is our sponsor, and they will help you with energy. Long days like today, you need something, because I've been at this for a long time, and then John and I moved cabinets and product, and they're still recording this interview, and we're still recording this podcast, and it's an hour and 18 minutes into our recording session. So sometimes you need that energy. Do it without the sugar, do it without the jitters. From the extract, from the coffee plant is how Debbie rolls, and we love them because we're nerds, and they have anime swag for their shakers. Even some of their labels on their flavors are Chainsaw Man and Free Ren themed.
What was it about ECW that just drove you to it?
So, when I get into something, I get into it. Like, I've got to learn everything about it. And if I can't be an expert in it, then what am I doing trying to say that I'm into this? And it's just the way my ADHD, hyper-focused brain is wired. But I would read Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and they would talk about these crazy matches that would happen, and these characters that intrigued me. I'd read the articles about Raven, and being a guy who liked punk rock, liked the alternative scene, I liked things that weren't as mainstream and as polished, mostly because I wasn't mainstream and polished. I didn't have preppy clothes. I didn't afford the top lines. I didn't get along with those people. When I found the punk rock crew, I got along with those people. When it's a bunch of poor kids from the hood, we got along. I wasn't, from the hood or anything, but it's from Bartlesville, Oklahoma. It's not like it was South Central LA, but, definitely had our poorer class. So, those are the type of people I fit in with, and it just gave me something to identify with that was different and off the beaten path. And then when I watched some of the matches and saw some of the characters, man, I was hooked. Plus, I love that Paulie Dangerously was associated with it, because that was the dude that was behind Stunning Steve Austin and Rick Rude, and that's when I broke in. The Dangerous Alliance, man, that was my jam. So I loved all of that. So yeah, there's so much about it. Some of the greatest characters, some really good matches. They changed the whole industry. You wouldn't have had these like work rate matches on television the way you do without ECW. ECW really brought it in. WCW with their cruiserweight division gave it a platform,
but that platform came and went. Really, it was ECW, and then when Ring of Honor started, and the work rate matches of Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Ring of Honor had a little bit of that. I mean, it's Gabe Sapolsky from ECW. It was from the ashes of ECW that they rose.
I mean, and you were talking about people sitting under learning trees. That's Gabe
Sapolsky.
Sapolsky.
Yep,
Sat
right under Heyman.
Paul.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the early ROH stuff, man. Again, finding some of the best wrestlers out there. It was less about character, which is why I never got into ROH as much in hindsight. Because when you got to people like your Roderick Strongs and Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, like, I just didn't see them as great characters. Tremendous wrestlers.
I'm about to say they didn't need a character. They were wrestlers.
But I can only watch so many 30-minute 5-star matches.
I get it.
I need some deviation, and that's where Ring of Honor didn't have enough deviation for me to hook me.
Gotcha.
Where, WCW would have a little bit of everything. ECW would have work rate and violence and comedy. They knew how to do that. TNA, almost to their detriment, would, like, when you put their cards together, it's like your tag team match, your work rate match, your hardcore match, your women's match. Like, you had to have one of everything. And then you had to have your main event, and your main event always had to have, like, the big drama run-in things. Like, it was almost cookie cutter in its deviation. It was almost like they didn't deviate from the way they deviated, which is a weird thing to say. But that was my problem with ROH anyway.
Yeah.
So I couldn't watch it all the time. Now, I'd pop a DVD in here or there. I can watch some of the better matches. Oh, hell yeah, I'm there for that. Man, Samoa Joe is what got me. Samoa Joe versus CM Punk. And, I was actually watching the Summer of Punk DVD last night. Oh, good stuff there.
Well, you recently got a bunch of ROH DVDs from somebody, and I was looking at them. One of them I would definitely suggest you need to go check out the Adam Cole Jay Briscoe match.
Yeah.
On that one for the world title.
Yeah.
Really good match.
Yep.
If you were going to suggest to somebody, you need to check out ECW, where are you going to have them start?
That rise and fall of ECW is a great documentary. So to show Tyler ECW, I showed him that documentary, and then we watched the first One Night Stand show.
Nice.
I think was it Heatwave 96? It would have been later than that. Heatwave 98. Good show. There are definitely some best of matches. YouTube's the best place to do it. So that Rise and Fall of ECW DVD, the Barbed Wire City's pretty good. And then, go through and check out some of the key matches I talked about from the different feuds. I would say RVD versus Jerry Lynn, RVD versus Sabu, Taz versus Sabu, Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow. At this point, I think I don't know if Sandman would age all that well. I don't know that I'd say go out of your way to watch it. The Raven stuff with Tommy Dreamer, not all of that ages well, but it is good. But yeah, treatment of women in ECW was where
Bottom of the barrel, very much.
Not good. Not good. So yeah, I think those are great places to start. The WWE version of ECW was not very good. There were a handful of highlights, but for the most part, nah. that was not great. One of the highlights was CM Punk. That was his introduction to the world at large, was through that version of ECW, and it was one of the special shows that had Hammerstein Ballroom. He eventually won their world championship. That was a great little platform for Punk. Other than that, it didn't accomplish a whole lot.
I think with ECW, one of the things that we can also look at is just, we talk about our store being a mom and pop shop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is local, bare bones, doing everything that we can to get this over.
Yeah, John doesn't even get paid half the time. When he's running the store, he gets paid. The other times, he's asking to be here. So
I get paid. I got paid in a Merle Haggard album and a Digimon toy here lately. I'm happy.
Yeah. I am too, because that's cheap labor.
That's right. But that's how ECW was. They were one of the people with a hotline number. You call WCW's hotline number, you're going to be talking to somebody that works for ECW or for WCW in their office. You called the ECW one.
Yeah.
There's a high chance you were talking to Tommy Dreamer. You were talking to Stevie Richards.
Bubba Dudley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bubba Dudley's the one that...
The production studio was in the basement of Paul Heyman's parents' house.
Yeah.
That's where they shot.
Bubba Dudley's the one that booked the buildings that they would wrestle in. Tommy Dreamer and Devon were the ones that drove all the merch from town to town and all that. They would just meet up.
Mail order shipped it to you.
They would mail order ship it to you. If they had to take it somewhere, they met up with little Guido at the warehouse, loaded it up in a U-Haul, and then drove to the town, came back from the town. And Tommy Dreamer would say, half the time I also had the concession stand money in my pocket too. I just had to take it to Paul.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. It was set up and ran like an indie promotion where everybody pitched in.
Taz was the t-shirt designer.
Yeah.
Like somebody like Taz that you wouldn't think had a single artistic bone in his body other than the way he would artistically dissect somebody in the ring. Designed all their t-shirts.
Yeah. Yep. And then you get the TNA, and it was just like, if it wasn't done by Jeff Jarrett, it was done by Jeremy Borash.
Yep.
Like those two guys basically ran that whole company, man. Jeremy Borash, that dude has hustled his ass off for the wrestling industry his whole life. It's awesome. I love it.
Jeremy Borash was also behind the first three deletion matches in TNA and all that, and then took the mind that he had from that and then turned it into the last
Cinematic
ride match for Taker when he wrestled AJ.
Dude, people don't even know how much they should appreciate Jeremy Borash. That dude is a total Hall of Famer when his career is done. That guy's given a lot to the wrestling industry.
100%.
Yep. Well, that's ECW. Extreme Championship Wrestling. Man, what a time in wrestling the 90s were. What a time the 90s were, man. Music was great. Wrestling was great. Man, we didn't have these phones in our pockets giving us anxiety all the time. Couldn't get a hold of us all the time. Social media wasn't showing us how terrible our family was. But hey, we didn't have YouTube to communicate with all of you either. So now we do, and we can communicate. We can hear from you by leaving a comment, telling us what you're nerdy about. Leave an ECW memory, and stop by the store. Check us out. Have a good one.
Chris the King of Nerds, Pro wrestling, he swerves, stats and moves he serves. Living in the universe, ring the bell, he's there. With that passionate flair, posters up everywhere, nothing else can compare. Chris the Wrestle King.